Hello, everyone. The conflict between Israel and Iran is about to kick off even harder here. It seems in the next hour, by the time this video is posted, Trump is currently in the Situation Room to talk about what the next steps are for the conflict and how the United States is going to actively participate in the conflict now. That could cause a lot of roller coaster price action in the market in general, and maybe even in oil. So I'm going to give my thought process on oil. We're going to take a look at the large tech stocks, the overall market, and everything in between. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and let's get started. All right, so number one, we see that the S&P 500 is really trying to hold above this trend line here. So this was a trend line from months ago where back in January, this started to become a level of resistance. And then once we broke down below it, it really led to a massive failure. And now we are back up above this trend line. So as you can see, it's really trying its best to sustain and hold above. Currently, things are still being very choppy. So this is a chart of the S&P 500 futures, and you could still see that we're trading below the 60-50 level, which is a major level of resistance. The market this entire week has been very choppy. But overall, unless we can really start to climb on the ES, get some solid two closes, in my opinion, above this trend line, that is going to eventually lead to some strength. But until that occurs, I don't believe this is an extremely bullish situation currently on the S&P 500 in the short term, until we get closes above this trend line. That's my thought process. And a major thing that I really want to just tackle home here is the overall market generally, right? When it comes to war, when it comes to boots hitting the ground, when it comes to soldiers touching down on another country, that's when the market starts to do really well. In general, war tends to be very good for the market. Things start to bounce. War is good. Okay, so we can take a look at Lockheed Martin. Currently, Lockheed Martin is down 3%, right? So that is not really necessarily showing that we're going to have an all-out war. But the thing... So let me just go ahead and Okay, so in my opinion, there's just no way that there is going to be a truce, all right? Because number one, it's going to make Trump look very weak. Trump is not going to be able to have a truce because a lot of his donors come from AIPAC. AIPAC has a big influence in the election currently. What we saw was many of the large Democratic Zionists that were very pro-Israel, the Bill Ackmans, a lot of these other names, Musk, right? A lot of these other names, they wanted to transition into a more aggressive leader that would take the fight to Iran, right? So under Biden was still a bit more tame in the way that he was trying to perpetrate what was going on in Gaza, right? But as you got these billionaires and people, especially in the Silicon Valley space, right? They wanted to make a shift from Democrats into Republicans. What we ended up seeing was many of these names started to promote the governor out of Florida. So once the governor out of Florida started to loot, so essentially once Ron DeSantis was not in the running to win, right? All of the support for Ron DeSantis, that Musk, Bill Ackman, a lot of these other Zuckerberg, these were longtime Democrats, longtime liberals. Once the support for Ron DeSantis, once they realized Ron DeSantis was not going to win the Republican primary, they began to support Trump. At that point, Trump basically, regardless of his views on war, anti-war, Trump ran on anti-war. He was very adamant about making fun of Biden for not being able to stop war. Trump and many of the entire MAGA space voted for Trump because of the lack of war. But what we have to do is always follow the money. If the main people that are supporting a war in Iran started to support Trump, you have to assume that a war is going to end up occurring, because they would not put their money and invest in a candidate that would not help and hold their own views, right? So with that being said, I would be very, very shocked to see a truce occur, because Trump is not going to be able to say no to his donors. You understand? So Trump is, not going to be able to deny what these people want, because they put him into power. Okay? So with that being said, another really, really interesting thing is crude oil. Crude oil is just the fact that we might be entering into a war. Similar to gold, right? There's trillions, there's so much gold in the world. Similar concept with oil. It seems like they can manipulate the price of oil in a way that is a bit more artificial. So yes, crude oil is currently at $70 a barrel. We might end up seeing crude oil hitting $100 a barrel, which is about a 20-30% increase. 30-40% increase. But with that being said, I don't see a really big resolution to this conflict. If Iran gets a ceasefire, the only thing that I could see end up occurring is if China or Russia is in the work as well to try to create some sort of ceasefire or a truce. If China and Russia are not able to have some sort of a truce and work alongside Iran, Israel, and all of these powers to be, then I don't think that there's going to be any sort of resolution, because Iran was already in talks with the United States when Israel first attacked them recently last week. So Iran, especially from the leadership in Iran right now, no one is happy with the double cross that the United States and Israel basically perpetrated. The United States, from an Iranian perspective, and what ended up occurring was that a lot of, Iran got caught with its pants down because they were in talks with the United States. And that's when Israel, many of the generals, many of the people that Israel ended up killing were found sleeping in their bed. So they were not anticipating an attack to occur, which is, something to take into account. Now, with that being said, moving forward, the United States stationed B-2 bombers south of Iran in the Indian Ocean. This facility is within striking distance of a missile that Iran launched today as a test. They launched a very specific missile that goes into the atmosphere. Once penetrating the atmosphere, it's able to come down at speeds faster than the current hypersonic missiles that Iran has been using on Tel Aviv. That is not good. And one reason why the United States wanted to station B-2 bombers near there, and B-2 bombers are the cream of the crop in terms of the United States Air Force, right? The United States stationed the B-2 bombers within striking distance of Iran, just outside of Iran's normal, missile range. They did this as a deterrent to Iranian aggression against Israel. What we ended up seeing today is the missile that Iran used is able to perpetrate much further distance. It's able to even perpetrate into Europe. So that is a very, very long-range missile. And currently, the Iron Dome that Israel has and the 3 different missile defense systems that Israel has are only essentially 6 to 7% of missiles that Iran shoots are able to come through. So if Iran shoots 100 missiles, a minimum 6 to 7 missiles end up hitting Israel. And that's obviously not good for Israelis, right? So now, from an Israeli standpoint, you have a president that AIPAC basically pushed forward. You have a threat or a country that doesn't like Israel in the area. You have a wide open door for Trump to essentially say, yeah, okay, I mean, this becomes such an easy opportunity for the United States to go to war, because Trump is not, it's not as if Trump is even forcing a war. They're already attacking each other. Iran and Israel are already attacking each other. Iran already does not like the fact that America supports Israel. Iran does not like Israel, right? They're attacking each other. Israel is our biggest ally in the Middle East. It makes complete sense for the United States to enter a war. And it is a war that the vast majority of Americans, people in the Charlie Kirk, he posted a poll. He asked his audience members. Charlie Kirk is a Zionist Republican, right? He asked his audience members, how many of you guys would want to go to war with Iran? 90% of his audience said no. So the vast majority of normal Americans are definitely not want to go to war with Iran. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter, because it's sort of too late. It gives a really, really good opportunity for Trump to go to war. This makes all the sense in the world. It's not as if a false flag was even needed. False flag was not even needed for this. This was just two countries at war. One is our ally. One is not. One is allied with Russia, China, etc., right? One is not. This makes all the sense in the world on paper. But it's going to be devastating. This sort of conflict is going to end up being devastating, because Iran is not Iraq. Iraq, even then, we lost so many troops. We lost so much money. We lost trillions of dollars. But the powers to be, ended up making a lot of money. The people on top that were in charge of these oil companies, that are in charge of all of these different private corporations in the Middle East, they ended up making a lot of money, because these corporations ended up owning the oil in the Middle East. Now, that's most likely a big reason why, France, Britain, the United States, all are deeply entrenched and supporting Israel, because all of them have deep-rooted economic interests in the Middle East, because of how much oil and how much resources they're making and garnering from this conflict. Same concept with Africa. All of these countries are going to take a very large vested interest in Africa. For example, Russia and China. Russia and China have a lot of power and dominance in Africa because of the resources and the natural resources. Okay, so all of this really does come down to money. And what ends up happening is, yes, say for example, okay, as an average US citizen, if we basically colonize the Middle East, right? Because that's what ended up happening. We ended up colonizing the Middle East. We are in control of all of the different governments. All of the leaders of these countries are under our control. The United States, AIPAC, Israel, control, right? Israel would not be in a situation where these different countries are on good terms with them if they were not put in power, if there's not some sort of blackmail that Mossad has on these people, right? So it becomes, a lot of it just becomes economic, right? So as an average American citizen, shouldn't we be reaping the rewards of being in control of all of these natural resources around the world? What ends up happening is no, because this money goes to the people on top. It goes to the greedy few that are on top, that are not giving as much of the wealth. They're not spreading the wealth. That's essentially causing mass homelessness. The quality of life in the United States is not comparable to these other countries, and the amount of resources that we have taken and stripped internationally from various different countries and continents that we're continuing to do today is not conducive with the lifestyle that we're living as Americans. So with that being said, regardless of any view on Israel, Iran, America, This war is going to end up, in my opinion, going to lead to massive catastrophe. This could end up being something in the short term that, this is not even we're not even considering what other powers could use this as a way to, for example, I wouldn't even be surprised if, because Musk needs to garner social capital and social currency where people need to trust him, right? Because he's making a neural chip, right? No one is going to trust someone to put a chip in their brain if they don't already see proof or if they don't already trust him as a person, right? So that's why, in my opinion, we see a lot of Musk starting to like, oh yeah, I'm a gamer, oh memes, this, that. It's all bullshit. Like, in my opinion, it's all just a way to relate to the average person. Now, Musk might end up making a play on this where he just starts, even though Musk is a very, very super support of Israel, just for the sake of it, just because the majority of the world is against Israel, right? Just mathematically, you could be in favor of Israel. That doesn't really matter. But the vast majority of the population of the world is against what Israel is doing in Palestine and this war with Iran. Musk can just be like, oh, he could just speak out against Israel, and like so many people are going to end up supporting him, and he's going to just end up garnering that social capital. People are going to trust him. This could end up being a play for Neuralink. That's a bit more of an off topic, but so what I was saying was the war with Iran specifically can end up being very, very bad, because what ends up happening is once Iran is gone, right, there's no one else in the Middle East that is a threat. Once Iran is gone, the only other countries in the area that are somewhat anti are Russia, China. You have Afghanistan that just got tens of billions of dollars worth of weapons that were left after the U.S. left Afghanistan recently, right? I mean, Pakistan's not really a threat because Pakistan is also a puppet government. Don't really have any threat. So Iran losing is going to be a very, very big deal to Russia and China. Russia and China, in my opinion, are going to be very, very heavily concerned with Iran losing, because it's going to cause a complete shift in the entire Middle East. There's not going to be a single factor that's going to stand in the way of the United States and Israel, which from not even from an American standpoint, from an Israeli standpoint, this is great. Okay? From an American standpoint, Americans aren't really even benefiting from this. So it's not even a great thing for America, because, yeah, we control all the resources in the Middle East. The average American is not even reaping the rewards. So this just becomes a bit of a waste. And this next few months, years, is going to be very, very interesting. And I don't know how long it's going to take for the conflict to subside. The United States is almost 100% guaranteed going to go to war with Iran. And the easiest, safest thing to do is to lean long on oil, because just on paper, oil should end up skyrocketing, because Iran is not going to end up going down without a fight. And they also have the weaponry, the population to give some sort of a fight. Their missiles are in range of the B-2 bombers of the United States. It's going to be very, very interesting. I don't think, unless Russia and China just completely stop and don't even participate in this, which I doubt, I think Russia and China are really going to try their best to try to mend out the situation. But aside from that, if you look at Syria, the main axis of resistance that Iran had, Lebanon, Hezbollah is destroyed basically because of the pager attack and various attacks that Israel did. Syria, Assad became out of power. So, and then Yemen, the Houthis recently were also bombarded and attacked by the U.S. Iraq was already Iraq, right? So a lot of these countries that were supporting Iran have been decapitated. You have Hamas in Gaza, also not really the same, right? So now the head of the snake is the last thing standing, and Iran this is going to be bloody. This is not going to be an easy thing, and if you do not speak out against this, then you're always, like, in the future, you're going to be on the side that allowed a war to end up occurring. And this is not something that's it's not worth it, because this can end up being a very, very major catastrophic world war scenario, and it's not good. It won't be good for anyone. The life that we live, the electricity, the comfort that we have is not going to be the same, because oil prices are going to get jacked up. If what I'm saying, what I think is going to end up occurring, oil prices are going to end up getting jacked up. That's going to cause a massive spike in oil, right? Which is going to cause a massive drop in the overall market. But of course, oil can also be manipulated. Commodities, I'm sure, can be manipulated to an extent, the same way that bullion banks manipulate gold and silver, etc. But yeah, I mean, this is a great opportunity for the U.S. and Israel to completely decapitate any sort of resistance that they have in the Middle East. But for the average American, for the average citizen, for the average person that is around the world that does not want war, that does not see the benefits of their governments colonizing and taking the resources out of these countries, because the average citizen is not seeing the rewards. We colonized the Middle East. We colonized Africa. But our countries still have homelessness. We still have to pay for healthcare. We still have to pay for education. Where are the rewards that the citizens are getting? So we're paying tax dollars to essentially these corporations, to these lobbying groups, to get money for funding, to attack these countries, to colonize these countries, essentially. And we're not seeing any reward from it. And we're basically just, we have to put a blind eye to it. And that's something that we are, unfortunately, there's not much that we can do right now. So it's very, very important to stay the course, to stay focused on what is going on around the world, and to try to do your best to disseminate information in a way where not only are you sharing the information, but you actually have the resources and the influence to try to do something with it. So, these next few months and years with Iran and Israel having an actual direct conflict with each other is very, very bad. It's very, very bad for everyone in the world. China can end up just using this as an opportunity to start attacking Taiwan, because a lot of the attention that the United States had in the Pacific is now going to be more so directed to the Middle East. China can use this as an opportunity to attack Taiwan. The same concept of what Syria did in the overthrowing of Assad. Syria, the rebel group, overthrew Assad in less than 2 weeks because Russia was already spread a bit thin attacking Ukraine. So the Syrian rebel group, they saw that as an opportunity to attack Russia-backed Syria. So Russia supports Syria, a Shia leader that also supports Iran. So if Iran is being directly attacked, this is also an attack to an ally that Russia had as well. So all of this stuff is connected. This is a really, really tough situation, in my opinion, for the world if the United States ends up going to war, man. And it's just not something that I really want to see end up happening. Go long oil. Overall, the stock market should end up doing well, unfortunately, right? Due to war. What we end up seeing is war helps the market. But aside from that, just yeah, that's what we're seeing recently is a lot of a lot of servicemen and women are speaking out against wanting to go to war with Iran, and Trump campaigned on this, so I would like to see him not go to war with Iran. Tulsi Gabbard is talking about stepping down from Trump's team if they end up going to war with Iran, and we're going to end up having to see what ends up happening. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. There's not really much else to talk about. The market was a bit flat today, very choppy. You guys can get a 7-day free trial to my Discord and the indicators that I use. I expect maybe eventually my channel to just become completely shadow banned, but it is what it is. Thanks for your support, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have an amazing day. Thank you. Take care.